Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Delray Beach Workshop, this April the 8th, 2025. The clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Marker,
Here.
Vice Mayor Longest running late, Commissioner Cassell,
Here.
Deputy Vice Mayor Burns,
Here.
Mayor Carney.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good afternoon. Today is the first of 4 budget discussion workshop meetings in which department directors will be given the opportunity to provide some sense of overview from the standpoint of granularity. As we committed during the current fiscal year proposed budget process, our focus is to do as much as we possibly can to demonstrate granularity relative to not only revenues and expenditures, but a sense as to how the operations align in that regard. So for that reason, we are offering the opportunity or direction for individual departments to provide background and engage with the City Commission so that you all can have a tremendous sense to the extent that we possibly can before the Office of the City Manager actually comes back with a balanced budget recommendation for fiscal year 2025-2026. So the first exercise today will involve hearing from leadership of the Fire Rescue Department, the Delray Beach Police Department, as well as the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services. 3 additional meetings scheduled to take place April 22nd, May 6th, and May 20th via the other departments and offices of municipal operations will offer a similar level of opportunity for clarity. Again, this is not by any means a hard and fast series of recommendations being made available at that time. This is simply the preliminary steps so that the City Commission can have a intimate engagement, if you will, relative to granularity and operations for each department. Following these exercises, the final of which to conclude Tuesday, May 20th, we anticipate a follow-up comprehensive workshop meeting during your June 10th session so that we can begin the process of a preliminary consideration in advance of actual proposed budget recommendations. So a few moving parts, but again, based on the commitment we've offered along these lines, we are pretty anxious and excited to work with the City Commission accordingly. So with that, I'll give Mr. Dakowitz, Chief Financial Officer, an opportunity to provide an additional moment or so relative to the purpose of why we are here, followed by each of the department directors. First for today will be Fire Rescue Chief Ronald Martin. Before Chief Martin, Mr. Dakowitz, if you would, please.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time. I think this is a pretty big change for the city. For this year, we're going to have 3 reviews with each department. The first was by myself and my budget team. The second is today with you good folks. And the third will be the city manager and I meeting with them, which will lead to the city manager recommended operating budget. Trying to respond to the requests from the commission to have more granularity, more detail, and to have the data in an earlier format so that you would have more time to review and be involved in the process, and at the same time have direct contact with the department heads to question them and to have a discussion. The trade-off is that the data prepared, which you were distributed on Friday, the 596 pages, has data on every line item for the entire general fund and all the 25 other funds. So it's as comprehensive as you probably see. We also had 3 years of prior actual data in addition to the current year budget, adopted, amended, and year-to-date actual. So the trade-off is that since this is new to our team as well, and we are short-staffed. My deputy resigned a while ago. Consequently, we're early in the process. And normally in the process, after data is input into the budget module, the team goes through it and interacting with each department They find errors that get corrected. There are misunderstandings. There are refinements. There are changes. So in the past, you got a pretty polished product. By getting it early, recognize, A, it's the preliminary budget request for each department, and secondly, it's without the extensive review that we would normally have. So we are flying the plane while we're building it. So appreciate your forbearance. Each 2 weeks, we'll probably refine what we're doing, giving you more detail, maybe giving you summaries as I handed out today so that you don't have to go through the whole 596 pages. But we are getting updates along the way. So appreciate your interest and involvement. Also, I had asked the departments, because it was so early, to not present a slide presentation as they normally might, and instead just to focus on the numbers, analyze them, get them right, and be able to explain them to you. So each department head would start with a statement of a high-level overview. I would just tell you that on the first go-around with the 596 pages, if you noticed, the total revenues were $177.4 million, and the total requested budget was $211 million. Obviously, that's very preliminary before we start the process. So we are working toward that, and now I'll turn it over to Chief Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Good afternoon, City Manager, Mayor, Honorable Commissioners, and community. It is my distinct honor and privilege to present the preliminary budget for the City of Delray Beach Fire Rescue Department for fiscal year 2025-2026. I'd like to pause for a moment and thank my staff's contribution. This has been a very new process with a new fire rescue chief. We started our budgetary process probably pretty early, right after we convened after the holiday season, and we adopted a zero-based budget approach to really help me understand what was in our budget. Through that process, we identified opportunities for efficiencies this fiscal year, which was tightening and control and tracking of all our purchase and acquisitions, ensuring that the department director sees every budgetary transaction that approaches the $5,000 mark and has my specific review. We've collaborated with our labor partners in Local 1842 to actually reclassify some of the collective bargaining positions to exempt executive positions, giving us a greater span of control at the executive level and oversight of the fiscal controls of the operation of the fire department, which long-term will help reduce our personnel service cost. We've taken steps in this fiscal year to control overtime. We are underperforming in our overtime GL this current fiscal year, which is realizing some budgetary efficiencies. And we have enhanced the review and approval process of what the city classifies as a way with pay for things like special committee pays, which is further enhancing our budgetary efficiencies. And this is all thanks to my wonderful staff who have absorbed a lot of change with me coming on board and have implemented these very efficiently, and I'm very proud of them for doing so. In fiscal year 2025-2026, in the preliminary budget that sits before you, we began this year with a sustainability philosophy, looking at what we are doing to sustain operations at its current level in this current fiscal year. We started at zero as our foundation, and we factored and anticipated an inflation rate of 5 to 6% in all of our projections in our operational expenditures. And this helped us determine a preliminary operational budget for this upcoming fiscal year. Once we took into our anticipated inflationary rate, we came to a figure of $6,961,609 for our operational expenditures of the Fire Rescue Department. This represents an increase in the operational expense of the Fire Rescue Department of approximately 9.7512%. From there, we scanned all of the 5 program areas, and we identified areas that may have some historical deficiencies as far as operational expenditures. We did identify one that we need to enhance, and that's our emergency management and homeland security program. So majority of our uptake in operational expenses was along that program. Once we addressed sustainability efficiencies, that brought our total operating cost to $7,631,816. This represents an operational expense change from this current fiscal year of approximately 20%. Through this budgetary process, we identified a need to control out-of-state travel for conferences, trainings, symposiums. We also identified redundant legacy expenditures across several different programs, and we eliminated duplicated expenditures that were captured in other program areas, furthering our budgetary efficiencies. The City of Delray Beach is a 108-year-old fire rescue department. Meeting with Henry Dakowitz, and I've got to tell you, kudos to them. Yesterday in our meeting, we identified some personnel service calculations with Henry and his team have been steadily working at, which you'll see the updated total preliminary budget increase or preliminary budget numbers that are different than what you originally had received. The Delray Beach Fire Rescue Department is an old, well-established fire rescue department. It is my belief and recommendation to the city manager is that we consider at some point to obtain long-term fiscal control, that we look at conducting community risk assessment, a fire rescue strategic plan, and a fire rescue standards of cover that is directed through you guys to the city manager that becomes adopted documents which will help us establish long-term fiscal control. Because we are soliciting the entire community's input, we have identified the risk that you acknowledge and adopt through an independent agency, which then establishes future fiscal funding priorities as well as operational goals and objectives that we all can function together and work towards in the betterment of our community and our citizens. With that, I'll turn it back over to Henry.
Thank you, Chief. I think it's open to you, whatever questions you have, and we can go from there.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you, by the way. There's, your ad valorem tax is the same, it's low. We don't know what that's going to be. We haven't assumed an increase. Is that correct?
I think what happens is, my understanding historically is that often we go through an expense budget, we look at the other revenues that we have. The ad valorem tax would be the plug to make it a balanced budget.
Right.
And then once we get the assessed values from the county assessor, we can fall
Right.
into a millage rate.
I'm just making sure you plugged in last year's number.
We did not attempt to project what that number might be.
Got it, because we determine that once we determine our needs. And I like that we're doing it this way instead of the reverse, which is we give you an ad valorem and you figure out how to make your budget work within it. I think this is definitely a better way to go. But I will say to you, just utilizing this year's number, I'm concerned about the cost of the fire and police, the safety, I'll call it, overall. Because if you do the totals, I don't know, in this calculation of the police, if you included approximately $4 million, that'll probably be going in as a result of the current negotiations. But either way, you take the $59.9 million, $60 million, and then you take the fire's $60 million, 60.8 or $60.9 million, you got $120.8 million in safety. And you're talking about looking at an ad valorem. If you just go with this number, and we know it's going to be a little higher, but just utilizing this number, our cost for fire and police is 113% of our ad valorem taxes. And I don't know how we sustain ourselves under these circumstances. And I'm just putting that out there for everybody, because either we are going to have to really increase how we're taxing our residents to afford our costs, or we're going to have to figure something out. And questioning, the current business model isn't obviously working, but this is the beginning. So you haven't included level of service increases. You haven't met with staff to do that in individual departments, or is that incorporated in some areas and not in others?
Remember that the numbers that you were provided were the department's requests.
Okay.
No review, no pushback, no questioning. Okay, that's first. Second of all, when you talk about fire and police, there was a contract signed that as of October 1st, we have to go from 2448 staffing to 2472
Understood.
staffing.
Right.
So that's a big increase.
I
So
know.
that's what some of those expenses are.
Yeah.
But I did the calculation that says ad valorem taxes are 66% of revenue.
Right.
Okay, this was based on this model. It'll obviously be higher when we increase it at the end of the process. At a high level, you have to look, as you do, of what is the percentage of total revenues that's being spent on the various departments.
Right.
Okay, that's the trade-off. The next level is what I'm working on with the departments, is to say within each department, what is your staffing? What is your expense? What is the pension contributions? And what are your other operating expenses? Okay, but it comes under an umbrella based on requirements, often by contract. People get 5% raises. People get 5% merit raises. And then you have contracts that have escalation clauses every year.
Right, and what you have left is only a small amount. So there's really not a lot of space for movement. And that's kind of the big concern. Because right now, when you look at our current budget, we need $33 million to balance it. And we're not going to we don't have the ability to change those contracts. The wages are committed to, and the increases annually and the like. So the only amount that we have that's flexible is a very small amount. And look, we saw what happened this year when we tried to work within that amount and cut it. I don't know that it works long term. So really, when we sit here today, instead of the budget being presented, and I do appreciate, because you took what we asked for and you gave it to us, but I think we really need to be looking at the bigger picture of where are we getting additional revenues for our taxpayers. Because if we can't get additional revenues, then we need to be taxing considerably more. And if I may, Mr. Moore, just one thing I would point out, because every year we feel like, the tax base increases, but when you go look at the actual amounts of the ad valorem, it's not such a substantial increase. Like, we are consistently having our expenses outpace our revenues, and it doesn't look like this year will be any different. Thank you.
If I may, ladies and gentlemen, just to add to that, in my overview earlier this afternoon, I talked about the June 10th workshop meeting, which will be devoted to an aggregate budget discussion for the upcoming fiscal year. At that particular point in time, we anticipate offering more specifics relative to revenue and expenditure considerations, and that will ultimately be provided to the Commission in July. So balanced budget recommendations are anticipated to be accomplished as they should, working closely with the Office of the City Manager, all departments, etc. This is a very preliminary overview, as Mr. Dacus talked about in his introductory comments a little while ago, for purposes of providing granularity. And a part of the granularity does touch on the opportunity for department directors to make their initial requests. Of course, working with the Office of the City Manager, that is not to be recommended. We have some vetting in which to accomplish, and that does include the revenue side as well.
Could I ask for one thing in the next report, if you don't mind? And I would like to thank Carmen, because sometimes we would get these reports and they wouldn't have the name and the run date. So I like having that, so that if I put the report down and then pick it up, I know where I am in chronological order. So thank you for that, Carmen. Also, one other thing that if you could incorporate, we used to see percentage increase on every item. I think that's probably something easy you can incorporate as a column into that report, perhaps. But if you could do that, I like to see the percentage difference up or down. Thank you.
You want a variance line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, it would go sort of like
Yeah, right,
after
variance from the year from the prior year.
prior year to, Thank
We're
you.
limited with the number of columns. The way to do that, and we've discussed that, is to take off the earliest year's data, actual data, and then what we will have, the calculation would be the difference between this year's request versus, the request for next year versus this year's amended budget.
Actually.
And then look at amended budget, meaning not the adopted, the amended as of wherever we are. We look at the dollar difference, and we also look at percentage increase, if that's more relevant to you. But
Or
we
you
are
could-
limited by how many columns we can produce.
You could take out the actual amount maybe or something. I mean, there's something that could probably come out. I'd like to see the 2022, frankly. But,
We'll figure it out. I
Thanks.
just don't want to go to microscopic font.
right, I don't either because my eyes aren't amazing. Thank you.
Mr. Long.
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Markert.
Yeah, a couple of quick ones, Chief, if I could. You had mentioned DHS. We had to do some tinkering to comply with something. What's that?
DHS.
Homeland Security?
That was our emergency management Homeland Security program.
Okay.
That has been pretty underfunded for a while, so there are certain things as a coastal community that I brought into that budget, such
that.
as FEMA-specific training. We also needed to start planning for a feeding plan. So if we are at our 8 essential departments for 72 hours of operations, employees should be coming to work with 72 hours of provisions with themselves. But then we have to plan for the next 72 hours. So I'm proposing in this budget to care, for pallets of MREs and drinking water, as well as I talked it over with the CFO yesterday when we met. I'm also recommending that we carry a small contingent for all hands emergency operations that would be extremely restricted should we have an event in the city requiring extensive fire department resources.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So what we have here, guys, is the first pass at the budget. So this is, the departments went in and used to this in the corporate world. This is their first pass. The gap is enormous. And now the harder stuff starts because we're going to have to make choices. And in the next pass, will we be able to kind of look at the choices that your team is going to make so that we can balance the trade-off? Because every choice has a trade-off.
I'd like to respond to that if I may.
Fair enough.
Going back to what I have in mind for the June 10th, 2025 workshop meeting, there will be an opportunity to initially engage what you just talked about.
Okay.
So April 8th, April 22nd, May 6th, May 20th, we'll have these types of exercises. You'll see significant variances because all they are initial requests being made by the department directors.
Yep.
So that you all can have a glimpse as to what's anticipated in that regard. Concurrent with that, the Office of the City Manager will begin its process of evaluating what recommendations will be, taking into consideration what the elected officials have had to offer relative to feedback and understanding what's happening in that regard. So June 10th, there will be a preliminary opportunity to, in essence, engage along the lines of what you just described.
Okay.
The actual proposed budget recommendation would be about a month thereafter. So with granularity, doing what we can to strike multiple balances so as to achieve across the board.
So just a question, again, I only have corporate experience. As a CEO, when these numbers were presented to me, I oftentimes would provide guidance back to the department in terms of about where we think we're going to be able to fund.
That will be the Office of the City Manager, April, May, until the beginning of June, so that we can have a cogent discussion June 10th.
Okay, so this group will provide that feedback to you at some point.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Commissioner Burns.
Chief
I'm
has
sorry.
if I may, talking about the first pass of the budget, the document that Mr. Dakowitz provided has kind of a first pass for our bottom line number as well. So we already were able to pull out about $6 million from that $61 million. So
Thank you.
yes, so thank you to Henry's team.
Well, it was calculations and a meeting of the minds of how we were calculating some things. The department did the operational expenses, we did the headcount and personnel costs,
Okay.
which, as you can imagine, for police and fire get very complex.
Yep.
So we literally today did a name-by-name review to try to make sure the numbers were even more accurate. So again, from Friday to Tuesday, we've made changes and we will continue to do so.
That's great. Appreciate the effort. I know what goes into this, and it ain't easy. And
Again, I'm going to call out Carmen.
Yep.
I think, given her, the newly promoted Deputy Chief Financial Officer, recognizing her experience, her expertise, both with government accounting and budgeting, as well as our computer systems.
Okay.
And organizing and leading the team, given all the other pressures on us to produce and keep the place running. So it's a tough effort this year. We are recruiting to replace people who have left, but we pulled together and we're doing the best we can to try to provide you with the data you need to make the best decisions.
Perfect. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I know what goes into this, so thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes, I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for this 596 pages. Even though I didn't get all the way through it, it was very easy, very comprehensive, and I appreciate that. And so I'm just looking forward. I know this is the very beginning, and I'm just looking forward as we move further into the process to get more data about, actual needs of the different departments. So thank you, both of you, for what you've done. Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah.
All right. I in looking at our revenues, we're looking at maybe I know if you take away whatever we get in the business receipts, taxes, and those things, our ad valorums are not going to be so much so that we won't even be able to pay our cost of living increases and meet the increase in the ad valorem. So we're starting off with ad valorums that are not going to pay for the cost of living increase for the employees we have now. Okay, so finding other sources of revenue are going to be key, and I'm also going to say I think finding additional savings are going to be key, because it's a big budget. I'm looking forward to seeing the variances on each one of these lines, because I look at those first. If you want to know the truth, I like to see what the
As do
numbers
I.
are. And I know, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. I appreciate that this is the first pass, but it's a very ambitious amount of money, and I am genuinely concerned. I don't want to use the R word that everybody's talking about on MSNBC, the recession word, but it's out there. So we got to be really mindful of our revenues, because we may not get the business tax receipts that we think. We may not get these other things that we think. So I appreciate this is the first pass. It's a great, I went through most of it. I actually printed out the whole 589 pages, whatever it was.
You still have all the ink in your printer?
We call it toner.
I
But
did
yes,
that
I
too.
did. So anyway,
Double-sided.
Oh, brilliant.
I don't like doubles. Oh, anyway, you don't want to hear my personal peeves. So, but anyway, Chief, I know all the work that went into this, and I really appreciate it. I just think we're going to really have to dig deeper, so to speak, to try to, because I am genuinely concerned that our revenues are not going to, and I don't want to have to tax the heck out of everybody to pay for things, which we can do, but it's hardly fair to them to do that. So that's really where I am on this. So.
Mr. Mayor, my executive team within the fire department and myself, I own property in coastal Florida as well. I am sensitive to what the property owners as well as the business owners are experiencing, especially now with so much geopolitical uncertainty in our current times. Just because you own a small business, I am well aware my family has a lot of small business owners. That doesn't make you independently wealthy. So we are very well aware of the cost of public safety services, and we are doing our best to control the cost. Just as of right now, you talk about variances and averages. Our current $55,635,958, that's representing about a 14% uptick from last year. I'm confident we're going to be able to drop that a little bit more, and we will dig deeper after this meeting. We're going to go back and we're going to continue working on the budget, and we will get something. I'm confident that will be fair to the taxpayer and keep everybody safe.
That's all I'm asking. I appreciate it. Did you have additional comment?
Just one thing. Okay, so on page 156, your 54.9 replaces your 60.9 million for the totals. Thank you. Mr. Dakowitz, when you started, we talked about all the funds that the city has, and you were trying to, wrap your arms around all the money that we have. Could we get a list of all those funds, inclusive of their balance, and whether or not they're restricted? And if so, somewhat what the restrictions are? Thank you so much. I'd appreciate that. And probably everybody should have
Those
that.
enterprise funds, yeah. I
Thank
agree.
you.
Understand that all the funds are included in the 596 pages.
No, right, but I don't know if
Which
they're
show
restricted or
revenue,
not.
which show revenue and
Right.
expense, historical, and the projections.
Yes.
It does not show the balance sheet items such as reserves.
Right.
So I'm assuming that's what you're asking.
No, it wasn't. Actually, I know the reserves. I didn't see the reserves, but I was looking for if there's funds. Missy and I were talking about there's 2 different gas tax funds. The question is, how much is in those funds? Are they restricted?
When you say how much is in those funds.
What balance is
that's
in
the
there that?
balance sheet.
Correct.
Cash.
That's what I'm
Reserves.
asking for from you. Oh, I see what you're saying because it's all in.
This was-
Understood. No,
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. You know what I'm looking for then.
I think so.
Thank you so much.
And-
You
and I
could
would
provide
also say,
provide all of us with that.
The
as well.
breakdown, of course.
The other point would be that what we're trying to do in these presentations is have each department talk about those non-general fund revenues that they are responsible for.
Okay.
Okay? So we'll get through that as they discuss their departments.
Great.
Thank you, Chief Martin.
Thank you both. Yes. Thank you, Chief Martin.
At this time, we will have Chief of Police Russ Major, also being accompanied by Mr. Henry Dakowitz.
I know. That's why I'm sorry I printed it up. I know, but I'd already sent it. I already sent the request in. By the time I called, it was 380 pages.
This is a summary of just.
Miss Jalen, I was thinking the same thing
But in
this
the
morning.
summaries, they also have those other funds that they're responsible for.
Thank you.
We covered the paper budget in here.
Not when I blew my paper budget.
Yes, toner, not ink.
Color too.
I did not.
Ask for color grade.
Yeah,
I did not do it in color.
this is color though.
I know. I see that.
No wonder we have this deficit. This is.
It's all because of the budget printouts.
No, but don't joke about paper and ink. It's serious business.
Chief, you're on.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, Commissioner, Mr. City Manager. Appreciate the opportunity today to give you an overview of our agency's budget presentation. The budget presentation I'm going to discuss with you is an ongoing commitment to maintaining safe and secure community-focused policing. Today we'll provide an overview of how our budget supports these efforts, outlining overall expense numbers, personnel requests, and operating expenses. The police department's budget is comprised of 2 divisions, operations and support. What you have in front of you is a preliminary budget request documentation with line items to provide granularity and transparency. Each division's budget is grouped by personnel services, operating expenses, and capital outlay sections. On page 121, which is the last page of the operating budget, 3rd column from the right, it shows the 2025 amended budget of $50.3 million. On the far right, you can see that the department request is over $55.9 million. Since this worksheet that you have in front of you was presented, we were able to do some housekeeping, if you will, and have revised it to 55.7 million. This is a difference between last year and the projected of 5.4 million, and it represents just under 10.8% increase over the current fiscal year amended budget. Out of the 5.4 million difference, 4.4 million is in personnel services, which includes projected salaries, benefits, and overtime expenses. The overtime expenses, which were over the last several years, 3.2 million in fiscal year 21-22, 3.6 million in 22-23 and 23-24, and current fiscal year budget was reduced to 1.9 million. We are estimating a budget overtime for the fiscal year 25-26 to be around 3.9 million due to staffing shortages, non-deployable personnel, and changes in rate of pay affecting overtime, as it also expected a result of the upcoming collective bargaining agreement.
You hear me? Okay. To improve efficiency and improve resource allocation in the department, we have 4 professional staff requests for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. The requests are going to free up sworn officers for duties that don't require law enforcement authority, and allowing officers to focus on patrol investigations and community engagement. The department will be able to hire civilian personnel at a lower cost as opposed to sworn personnel with expertise in specific areas, which should enhance the department's overall capabilities, reducing workload on the sworn officers. These positions include evidence custodian. The evidence unit is a high liability area responsible for overall proper handling, storage, management, and documentation of evidence, and it is crucial in maintaining the integrity of criminal investigations, legal proceedings, and accreditation standards. This area is in need of a supervisor other than sworn sergeant who is currently in that position. We are planning to request 1 evidence custodian to be reclassified as an evidence supervisor for the current fiscal year, therefore needing a custodian position added to the budget in the upcoming fiscal year. Audio-visual administrator, a designated technical position for all AV aspects of the department, crucial to keep up with the technology currently in place as well as future growth, responsible for day-to-day operations of all camera systems to include overseeing installations, administration, updates, configurations, inventory, working with vendors, maintenance, and assistance with the back-end software. This position will perform validations of speed cameras, such as what we're talking about, the red speed cameras and all of the new technology that we have going on throughout the city right now, where we're approximately about $1.2 million into right now. So we'll need somebody to actually oversee that equipment. The next position is administrative office coordinator. We currently have a part-time position right now. From this part-time position, we'll be going to a full-time position. The existing part-time position and unit have been tasked with additional duties to include managing uniform ordering for the department, as well as recording maintenance of employee information in the public safety systems portal, to include our records management system, our fingerprint Falcon key card system, ProWatch, FDLEs, ATMSs, telestaff, maintenance of employee files, onboarding new hires. This position was a part-time position, but we've had a position that actually have since left the PD, in which we actually had to put duties on this part-time person to be able to help facilitate and fill some of those duties from that position that was vacated. Application support specialist, designated skilled professional staff to support all public safety software applications. There are roughly 40 applications that are used daily across all units that require day-to-day installation, administration, updates, security updates, configurations, working with vendors, specialized reports, requests, end-user software training, compliance with FDLE, FBI requirements, product enhancement and troubleshooting, development of standard operating procedures for end users. Again, this is another position with all of the technology that we have currently onboarding. We've been working with our IT department and Jay Stacy in regards to how we can actually implement this and have someone to be able to handle all of this software that we're adding on with the expertise, because currently with what we have, the three personnel at the department, we currently can't handle all of the information that's coming aboard at this point in time.
Hello, my name is Christina Maricic. I am Police Administrative Services Manager, and I'd just like to, at the end, mention some of our units and what we do, just in case it is not known. So what we consider ourselves is a full-service police department. Aside from the community patrol, we have our communications or dispatch unit, our crime scene unit, evidence, internal affairs, investigations unit, criminal intelligence unit with a real-time crime center, a canine unit, a police information unit, a dive team, a SWAT team, a marine unit that patrols intercoastal waterways and participates in manatee protection grant, our technology unit, problem-oriented policing unit, our clean and safe unit, which ensures safety of the clean and safe area, community outreach team that works with individuals experiencing homelessness, those in recovery and those with behavioral health issues, providing advocacy, crisis intervention, and case management, our traffic unit, training unit, vice intelligence and narcotics unit, records team, drone team, honor guard, fleet, administrative unit, and our accreditation unit, and of course community-oriented policing unit with the newly acquired therapy dog. Our department has volunteers who assist with visibility in Delray neighborhoods. We have officers teaching at the Criminal Justice Academy in Atlantic High School. We have officers instructing at the Carver Middle School. We have police explorers, and we also provide school security to assist the school board with coverage in Delray schools. Aside from contributing to our community by maintaining order, responding to emergencies, enforcing laws, and investigating crimes, directing traffic, we also engage in community outreach to build trust and foster partnerships, and therefore enhance quality of life for our residents and visitors.
And if I can conclude, the reason why I wanted Christina to read that into the record is you could see that there's so much to a police department other than the traditional calls for service and just following up on crime. I say this to you, you all are aware of what we do, but it's just a little reminder. Sometimes it's good to hear all the different specifics that go on within our agency, and I just wanted you to be aware. We are here to answer any questions that you may have relative to this meeting, and we look forward to working with you to try to get to a comfortable place to conduct business.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Would you like to go first?
Sure. First of all, thank you guys for the comprehensive sort of review here. I guess my question is more just in general what our process is like with these worksheets. Like, what's the plan going forward with you? How often are we going to be getting these sort of worksheets? What did we decide on?
I think, well, these are the first pass of the budgets. They're going to be subject to revisions and
Right.
They are all subject to revisions. Again, as some of you have already communicated, this is the first pass.
Yeah.
So, of course, by June, July, a full proposed balanced budget recommendation, striking the balance vis-a-vis revenues and expenditures and so forth, will be achieved. More information is being shared because of the commitment and expectations regarding granularity. Because numbers move, and this is simply a function of preliminary requests having been made by departments, which will be ultimately vetted by the Office of the City Manager and the Department of Finance. We will be deliberately sharing information electronically as well as in terms of distribution of material. So our interest is to do what we can to strike a balance whereby we don't have to use a lot of paper, obviously, but this is a first step to increase granularity, and therefore providing updated information is why we need to be where we are.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Terrence. And I appreciate I agree with the goal of seeking out more granularity, but I mean, this is kind of hilarious that we're given 1,200 pages to look over before a meeting. Like, that's not.
only 596. Now, come on.
We haven't even got to neighborhood services yet, so I was actually being probably close to 2,000. But it's just a lot. And when we said worksheet, I was picturing kind of a summary, and with having access to this, like it being on the record somewhere where we could check it. But I don't know that we need to be like provided with this much data right like for a meeting. Just trying to streamline our process and make it a little more realistic for how we're going to approach this going forward. Again, on board with the granularity, but how are we going to like do this in a realistic way? Frankly, that's all I'm getting at. Not a critique, just a thought. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns.
Yeah, I don't have any questions at this time. This is just at the very beginning, and it's a lot to assume here. However, I do want to, it's very comprehensive, and, it provides the transparency that has been requested. It's all here, and I appreciate that. And just want to thank you for the work that you've put into this. And then, Chief, too, I appreciate hearing the other parts of the police department, because it's more than officers out on the street, on the beat, trying to prevent crime. And thank you for what you do for the quality of life for our residents. That's it.
Commissioner Marker.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. This is a hell of a lot of work. I appreciate it very much. I'm with Rob. I would love for the next pass to see an executive summary pasted on top of this, 5 pages that give me the highlights and point me in the right direction. That would be, I think that's what you're asking for. That's what I would love. And to your point about the therapy dog, we got to keep Leo. He's my buddy. So Leo can't come out of the budget. So, but thank you for the work. I appreciate this. But if we could just get an executive summary on top of it, Henry, then I'm happy.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we can do, because again, our interest is to maintain the focus regarding granularity. So, an executive summary effective the April 22nd engagement. Of course, we're not in position to do that today, April 8th, because we're in the middle of it. But effective April 22nd, May 6th, May 20th, a brief overview to accompany the granular documentation that's being provided. That's a fair request, and we'll do what we can to make that happen. Fair enough, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, I'll take that as a yes.
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 Thank you.
Perfect.
May
Yeah.
I go? Okay.
You're up.
Thanks.
Yeah. You're done?
I love this presentation was great, and I really love the idea of going out and trying to fill some of these positions with civilians. In fact, I was going to bring this to your attention. North Palm Beach has what's called a reserves program, where they have retired officers who still want to stay engaged, young people who maybe think they want to be officers, or sometimes people who are in between and they're just kind of, looking for work. Anyway, there are a lot of, there's a benefit to this program, and apparently there's a lot of interest there, and there's only a class, like a class people take to get certified, and then they can work side by side with an officer, giving greater presence, but they're civilians and they're not actually acting in the capacity of an officer. So something to think about. You may want to look into that program. I appreciate the granularity of the presentation. We asked for this, and I saw a lot of things in here that I didn't know. There's a lot of grants in the police department that I don't even know what they are. I'm assuming when we say grants and they're in the expenses, they're things we're giving out, but probably there's offsetting money that's coming in. And I would just like to have an idea of what that is, and you and I can talk about that privately. I can shoot you an email with some information about the grants. Also, there's Mr. Dakowitz, there's a department I didn't know existed on page Department 90. Oh, I didn't write the page number down. Miscellaneous department, in which we have $2.7 million of expenses, which I kind of found interesting. In this year, 2022, we had $4.1 million in the miscellaneous department. And I didn't know we had a miscellaneous department, but I think it's just a kind of place where money can, I don't know. It's not a police issue. I'm directing that to, but I would like to know a little bit more about that Department 90 miscellaneous department, because I never saw that before. I don't think I noticed that on prior reports. So that was interesting to me. And let me see if I had any. There was one question, but it was somewhat self-explanatory. I talked about the grants, right? A lot of, and then page 333. Well, actually, you know what? That's a Parks and Rec thing. I'll take that up with Sam. I have a lot of individual questions, which I can direct to the departments along with a CC to you. that maybe you can answer for me, but I do appreciate this granularity, and I think, I don't think, right, I mean, the first time it's really good to see it because we get a really good idea of what's going on with this document, and I thank you very much.
I mean, I like the granularity. I mean, I've been looking at, I mean, it was different in this one than the others, but for example, you have in your line giving over the different years, and I'm seeing, you know, the increase of like 70,000, I mean, 20,000 increase, 50,000 increase in all these numbers. So I don't really know, I mean, to take, for example, communication service, portable phones, 54,000 is now going to be 77,000. That's $20,000. That's a lot of money for, I don't know what, I guess I don't know what we're buying with it. So I mean, the cameras, the phones, these are the kinds of things, these are the kind of questions that I have. And the amount of money we're spending on all of these events, I'm just taking a mental note of that, because I'm wondering whether or not some of these, we spent $70,000 on the tennis. I don't know. I'm just trying to see where we should be seeking reimbursement on some of this stuff. I mean, we're putting out a lot of money for our events, but you know, I want to know whether we should be thinking about some reimbursement. And the miscellaneous, and I see 50,000 miscellaneous. I really don't pay attention to it, but a couple $1 million, that's a big number. Exactly. So that's really what I want. And I'm curious about your statement that we supply police to the schools. I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but school board has their own police department. Do we get reimbursed from the school board when we provide them?
Are you talking
Yes.
about
That's
the
good.
Atlanta?
That's fine. That's the right answer. So, but anyway, I appreciate all this. I do appreciate the executive summary, but I mean, I have a dull life, so I actually read all this stuff. And
Me too.
so I do appreciate it. Whether or not we're going to need it every time after we get through the first couple passes, I think I agree.
I think ultimately, the way I see it is you'll have an executive summary, and then when you want to drill down to go into more detail in whatever area it's available to you.
Exactly. That's it.
It's just for the first time.
Yep.
We're
So-
glad that we were able to get this out, but for the next time, we'll have executive.
Because I will generate some questions on this, as maybe the other commissioners will too, so that when we get to the next stage, you'll have included all those or get some answers as to what some of the stuff are. For example,
think
like I
that's
just asked
what-
for the police.
That's why it's there.
Very good. Otherwise, but I do like to know what the miscellaneous is. I want to work in that department with $2 million. Anyway, any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief Major, Chief Hunter, and Ms. Christina Millerchik. At this time, we have Director of Neighborhood and Community Service, Jerry Pryor.
So we get reimbursed by the school.
Daryl, no touching Leo.
But that was a lot.
You got it. You got it.
For Atlantic High School you were talking about? It was a lot.
But, you know, they got $1 billion budget. We got, you know.
They have a giant budget, which we pay into. Yeah.
Yeah, they really do. You were in Georgia? Were you up there? No.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor, for coming, and then Mr. Dokowitz. Who's going to start?
Well, he already got to talk, so this is my turn.
I agree with you, really.
I got you. So thank you for having us here today and an opportunity to talk to you about proposed budgets in the budget season. The other municipality that I worked for, we also started our budget season about December is when we started. So when I started in January, the end of January, this was baptism by fire for me for this budget process. The way I approached this was taking last year's budget as a flat line and then 5, 6, 7% on top of that for the cost of supplies, services, things that general increase. I cannot express to you how thankful I am of the staff that I have in the Department of Neighborhood Services, Community Services. I couldn't have done this without them because not only were they onboarding me and my job, but they were also thrown into this budget process and said, this is what we're going to do. So we literally did the granular exercise, item by item, line by line, division by division. And we came up with a A few things. Officer safety is the first one that you're going to see an increase in the budget. We're asking for new radios. The portable radios that the code officers have are no longer efficient in that they don't talk to our current law enforcement or dispatch center. So that was the first request that was asked. And so when you go through the code budget, you're going to see a huge increase in that request. Now, do we need radios? I say yes, because it's officer safety, but there are also alternatives, using cell phones and things of that nature. So that's part of what we're going to explore as well. Another increase is training, because we spoke about one of the things with the consultant was getting staff at the level of training that we need them to be. So you're going to see those increases in the training budgets across the board for every division. And so for those two major things, also for equipment, you're going to see a request for vehicles. And I'll explain why. We're asking for, in the CRA, clean and safe, right? So one of our revenue streams is CRA. CRA pays for people. They pay for services. They don't pay for equipment. And so one of the things that we're asking for that's going to see in the general fund budget is we're asking to have an irrigation worker. And that irrigation worker specifically for the CRA Clean and Safe District. And right now we're borrowing the irrigation workers, if you will, from Parks and Rec. And so the request was, if CRA can help fund the position, then we're asking from general funds to fund the vehicle and the equipment to perform the irrigation services in the Clean and Safe. Also in the Clean and Safe, we're asking for an administrative position. And that administrative position, of all the divisions that we have, 4 divisions, everyone but Clean and Safe has an administrative support staff. And so we recognize that as, why don't you have one? When he's using everybody else's administrative staff and still falling behind on things that we're trying to achieve with Clean and Safe. And so again, CRA said, yes, we'll help fund the position, but you have to buy the equipment. So you're going to see a slight uptick in that. Also in our sanitation, which I will talk to you all day long because there's no effect in the general fund, and it's all enterprise fund. And so we're asking for 2 positions to be night sanitation litter patrol officers, because we figured out that in the Clean and Safe area, in the CRA area, citywide, especially on those nights that we're super busy, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the sanitation comes in at 4:30, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning after big events, after big nights, and it's a lot of litter patrol that they're having to pick up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're asking for 2 positions to work at night to help alleviate some of that pressure to get the streets cleaned and the trash bins dumped and things like that in a timely manner, so then we can be open for business as early as we can. So we're asking for that. Also with our general maintenance, we're asking for the John Deere Gators for the Clean and Safe, and those are those little maintenance 4-wheel vehicles, if you will. So again, CRA is happy to fund the positions, but not the equipment. And then the litter patrol and the vehicle requests. And so that's pretty much the differences that you're going to see. Overall, the budget is hovering about 8 to 9% increase from last year's budget. So.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just to add to this, and ladies and gentlemen, we've had a couple of personnel changes in the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services that will enable the Office of the City Manager to work collaboratively with Ms. Pryor and her team to achieve efficiencies in operations that may support the considerations that are presently being contemplated. So as we finalize considerations working with the Commission aggregately, June into July, when we ultimately provide a proposed budget consideration, that is to be taken under consideration. As a matter of fact, you and I are visiting sometime next week to offer an initial summary, which will be featured in the April 18th information letter report in terms of what that might look like. So I highlight that specifically because this is in alignment with some of the other opportunities we've experienced engaging with Calvin Giordano and others to help us get to the absolute best place we possibly can for efficiencies in operations, number one. And number two, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, all departments will be expected by the Office of the City Manager to work collaboratively with all involved to identify efficiencies in operations so as to strike that balance relative to some of the concerns a few of you had raised relative to revenues and expenditure differences. And so that's part of the mix in that regard. But again, working with Ms. Pryor over the last nearly 3 months now.
Almost 3 months.
It'll be 3 months on the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
We've been able to have a fairly productive experience, and thus I thought I'll offer a few words to complement your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Commissioner Burns.
I don't have any questions. Just congratulations on your 3-month anniversary.
Thank you.
And I've heard nothing but great things. And, you know, so to ask for 8 to 9% increase to make the department run efficiently, I support. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Casal.
No, I would say thank you as well. We've had a couple conversations. Ms. Pryor has had to take on some people who have had a series of concerns, and she's getting a lot of compliments. So thank you very much.
Very passionate. We say they're very passionate.
They are passionate.
Commissioner Long.
Just thank you. No real questions, just good work so far. I know you're really rebuilding the culture of that department, and I think supporting you and rebuilding that department in some ways is critical right now, and really appreciate having you at the helm. Great work.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marker.
Also, a big thank you. It's been baptism by fire since you started. I know that,
Yeah.
and we're really glad that you're here. And we appreciate your hard work and your positive attitude. I look forward to the next round on this. But
Yes.
you know, 8 or 9%, it's getting in the range.
It's in there. It's in there.
Yeah.
There's always room for improvement because
Always.
already reviewing the documents that you all have, I already
Yeah.
see a couple areas where
Yeah.
they shouldn't have been there. The dollar amount shouldn't have been there. So it's, you know, a couple dollars here and there.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But your increase, your increase also includes additional personnel. So I'm
Additional personnel with little to minimal effect on general fund.
right.
Yep.
So I think that you have a big task there to redo that department. So
Thank you.
I wish you all the best.
And you've got to avoid all the tariffs on the cars and the vehicles that you're going to purchase.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
We're going to start. Shouldn't we start doing a tariff for people coming into town? It's just big.
I like that idea.
I think so too. Thank you very, very
All
much.
right. Thank you.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the budget workshop meeting. So
Oh
unless
wait, I'd
there's
like to correct myself because I was looking at my notes about this miscellaneous department, but then I pulled this up and I went back and looked at it. It looks like it's grants. So forgive me because I do know it's not as miscellaneous as I thought it was.
Okay.
It's
Well,
less-
I was backing you there. So
I know you were backing me, and I always appreciate that. There were
wanna
a
be
couple of them I didn't know what they were, but for the most part, I think they're self-explanatory. Thank you, Mr. Dakowitz. So no need to answer that question.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the engagement. We will convene again April 22nd, and given the fairly productive and smooth experience we had today, I would like to entertain an interest in maybe beginning the April 22nd engagement, say about 3:30 as opposed to 3 o'clock. Because of course we have a little bit of time unless people do enjoy having nearly an hour break between that and the regular city commission meeting.
we can squeeze another workshop in.
No, sir.
Gotta be on some topic we can do.
Professionally, I do not recommend that approach, Mr. Mayor. We need to maintain focus on the budget, the numbers, the granularity, and the analytics.
With the 3:30.
Oh, we should have meetings at 6.
3:30 to 5, or a little bit before, followed by the regular meeting at 5 for April 22nd, May 6th, and May 20.
I mean, if we can do this one in an hour, why do we need a full hour and a half for the next one with executive summary?
Because I think we'll easily exceed an hour by a few minutes.
Okay, well, then that's fine.
So 3:30 this, Madam City Clerk, let's update the posting to that effect. And we'll likewise work with Noemi to update everybody's individual schedules.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other things?